Good evening, I'm Cynthia Ng. You are tuning in to AWANI Tonight. Election Commission to only meet next Thursday to decide on key dates for GE15. And Perikatan undermining the government, the reason why elections had to be held now, says PM. That's coming up. The Election Commission, EC, will decide on key dates for the 15th general election in a meeting that will be held next Thursday, October 20th, at its headquarters in Putrajaya. It will also do the same for the Bugaya by-election in Sabah. In a statement, EC Secretary Datuk Indra Ikmalruddin Ishak said the special meeting will also discuss other key dates for GE15, such as nomination day and polling day, as well as the electoral that would be used and other preparations for implementing the two elections. A press conference will be held after the morning meeting, where the dates are expected to be announced. Perikatan Nasional's open hostility towards Warisan Nasional and its undermining of the government were the reasons why GE15 had to be held now, says Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob. His remarks came after the Yang di-Pertuan Agong expressed disappointment with political developments in the country. Ismail Sabri pointed out that 12 ministers from PN had written to the King to reject the dissolution of Parliament. They were also becoming increasingly hostile towards the BN coalition, openly criticizing decisions and policies of the government of which they were a part. While PN Chairman Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin had also openly declared that his coalition considered BN its main enemy for GE15, despite being partners in the current government. These actions, Ismail Sabri said, had undermined the office of the Prime Minister, making the government untenable and forcing him to dissolve Parliament. Former Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad announced he will contest in the upcoming general elections, choosing to defend his Langkawi parliamentary seat. However, he did not indicate if he would be the Prime Minister candidate for Parti Pejuang Tanah Air, at least for now.
Di Langkawi, calonnya ialah Dr. Mahathir bin Mohamad. Tapi bukan sebagai calon bakal Perdana Menteri, calon sebagai wakil rakyat saja. Kita tidak tentukan siapa yang akan jadi Perdana Menteri. Karena calon untuk Perdana Menteri itu relevan kalau kita menang aja.
Mahathir added that the Gerakan Tanah Air coalition plans to field 120 candidates nationwide, all of which will contest under the Pejuang banner. At the same time, Mahathir warned that imprisoned former Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib Razak could be set free if UMNO claims victory in GE15. The party, he said, would also look at dropping dozens of other corruption charges if it wins the election.
If they win this election, their first move would be to ask the Agong to pardon Najib. At this moment, they have made a request but has not been pardoned. But should they be able to win and form the government, that is their first objective. Not about the welfare of the people, not about the banjir and all these things are minor.
The Selangor state government will stick to its decision to only dissolve its Legislative Assembly next year. Menteri Besar Datuk Seri Amiruddin Syari said there weren't any requests for the state government to be dissolved. He said this following an audience with Sultan Selangor, Sultan Sharafuddin Idris Shah. He added that the ruler wanted the state government to immediately resolve issues that affect the people, like flood mitigation projects and the redevelopment of the Shah Alam Sports Complex, before dissolving the State Assembly. He said the state budget, which was scheduled to be tabled on October 28th, may now have to be postponed.
The Penang government, meanwhile, is still keeping mum over the decision made regarding the dissolution of the State Legislative Assembly following Parliament dissolution. Chief Minister Chow Kon Yeow had chaired 2 meetings with the state DAP leadership and Penang Pakatan Harapan leaders on Tuesday, but said the matter would have to be referred to PH Presidential Council and the DAP Central Executive Committee. PH had earlier said the Selangor, Penang and Negeri Sembilan state assemblies would serve out their full terms.
With nearly 6 million new voters added to the electoral roll following the implementation of Undi 18, political parties must now come up with strategies to win the hearts of young voters. Trisha Yeo from Institute for Democracy and Economic Affairs Ideas shares what this group of first-time voters may be looking for in GE15.
I think that young voters today will have they are really spoiled for choice, in the sense that in the past there was a very clear distinction between the Warisan and the Pakatan coalitions and the parties that formed within them. But today you have a multitude of other parties, including Muda, including Pejuang. Some of these parties are not formed into coalitions. So it then becomes very imperative for the parties themselves to be able to have a very strong selling point to their voters. So, firstly, do they have the right personalities to be able to attract the younger vote? Do they have the right leadership qualities, leadership with integrity as well? I think we cannot forget, for example, that the last election, it was all about corruption, about institutional failure to be able to catch on to the 1MDB crisis. So have we actually any parties that stand for these sorts of integrity issues? And I think finally, it's having an attractive enough manifesto going into the election. So in the past, maybe about 10 years ago, it could be that parties were not very aligned on policy. It was not something that they thought people were very interested in. But I think we've come a long way, and this is thanks to a lot of public education that many groups have done, that voters now are more aware of what they're getting themselves into.
Tonight on Consider This, we will take a closer look at young voters. We ask our guests if this group will become a force to be reckoned with in GE15. Now, those who test positive for COVID-19 will still be allowed to vote in GE15, Health Minister Khairy Jamaluddin announced today. Following much deliberation, he said the rights of voters to vote, including the ones who are COVID positive, should be respected.
Khairy said his ministry would ensure a COVID-safe election this time round. MOH has made a series of recommendations to the Election Commission, which will announce the election SOPs soon. Under the ministry's recommendations, a special pathway and different polling stations will be set up for COVID-positive voters. It also includes a requirement for them to wear a face mask at all times during the voting period.
Party Warisan is looking at contesting in at least 7 states in Peninsular Malaysia in GE15. Party President Datuk Sri Shafie Apdal said this is to offer voters another option other than the usual federal parties. He added that a ground survey by the Sabah-based party indicated there are seats in Peninsular Malaysia where independent candidates could prevail.
While he kept the number of seats Warisan will be contesting close to his chest, Shafie revealed the states as Perlis, Kedah, Penang, Perak, Selangor, Kelantan and Johor. In Johor, he confirmed that the party is likely to contest in Pasir Gudang and Tanjung Piai. He said Warisan's focus on Johor Parliament seats is due to an influx of Sabahans in the area. In the Johor state election in March, Warisan lost deposits in all the 6 seats it contested. Shafie also said the party will field candidates in all 26 parliamentary seats in Sabah, including one in Labuan. He said Warisan will not discriminate between BN and PH targeted constituencies, but he hopes a consensus can be made post-election.
We will take a quick break. Stay tuned for more.
Alami kehebatan dunia Unify TV dengan lebih 70 saluran premium dan 16 aplikasi penstreaman. Tonton dan nikmati rancangan kanak-kanak, liputan sukan, drama Korea dan filem terkini bila-bila masa di mana jua. Dapatkan Unify hari ini. Unify.
Welcome back. Japan has finally reopened its borders to tourists after being one of the last countries to do so following the pandemic. This puts an end to almost 3 years of strict border controls in a move that many hope will kickstart the country's post-pandemic recovery. Visa-free travel is back for short-term business and tourism for more than 60 nations. The only protocols left for entry are that travelers must be fully vaccinated with 1 booster or have a negative PCR test within 72 hours of departure. Chief Cabinet Secretary Hirokazu Matsuno said the Japanese yen, which has recently weakened sharply against the US dollar, would also give some visitors much heftier buying power, which Matsuno hoped would entice more visitors to come.
これらの措置は円安のメリットも生かしつつ、我が国と海外との国際的な交流を一層活発化させるものであり、我が国の社会経済活動に資するものであります。
Tourists are expected to deliver a sorely needed 5 trillion yen to boost the world's third largest economy. A serious debt crisis is now taking hold in the poorest parts of the world. According to a new report by the United Nations Development Programme UNDP, an estimated 54 countries, more than half of the world's poorest people, are in need of immediate debt relief to avoid even more extreme poverty.
The countries at the most immediate risk are Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Tunisia, Chad and Zambia. According to the report, 46 of the 54 countries had amassed public debt totaling $782 billion in 2020. The situation is deteriorating rapidly, with 19 of the developing countries now effectively shut out of the lending market, 10 more than at the start of the year. The report calls for swift action, including writing off debt and wider relief, especially since the affected countries were among the most climate vulnerable in the world.
New Zealand is proposing to tax sheep and cattle burps and urine in a bid to tackle one of the country's biggest sources of greenhouse gases. The government plans for the tax to be introduced in 2025, making it the first in the world to reduce agricultural emissions.
Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said the money collected from the proposed levy would be put back into the industry to fund new technology, research and incentive payments for farmers. Farmers, however, were quick to condemn the plan, saying it would affect small-town New Zealand and see farms replaced with trees. Opposition lawmakers have also said the plan would do the opposite and increase worldwide emissions by shifting farming to other countries that were less efficient at producing food. The farming industry is a crucial component to New Zealand's economy, with dairy products being its largest export earner. Its 5 million population is easily outnumbered by some 10 million cattle and 26 million sheep. These farm animals produce gases that contribute to climate change, namely methane from cattle burps and nitrous oxide from their urine.
That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. I am Cynthia Ng. Thank you for watching.